Hey, I see you, the ambitious, driven woman who seems like she's got it all figured out, but inside, stress, anxiety, and overthinking are taking over. All those big goals and that never ending to do list keep you busy, but your mind, it never stops long enough for you to actually enjoy your life. That's why I created Ambitious Overthinkers Anonymous, AOA. It's a community for high achieving women who are ready to ditch stress and self doubt for confidence and peace of mind. Inside AOA, you'll find live lessons and coaching to help you take action without second guessing. And guess what? They're all recorded, so you can watch them once, you can watch them at your own convenience, or you can watch them over and over again. You'll find an interactive chat and forum for real-time support from other women who get it and from me. And you'll have workshops, book studies, retreats, and all kinds of fun things coming in the future to help you connect and shift your mindset so you can stop that spiral of overthinking. Right now, you can lock in 3 months of AOA for just $150, but this special isn't going to last forever. So go to megandevito.com/work with me and click Ambitious Overthinkers Anonymous and join me today. I'll see you inside. Hey there, welcome to the More Than Anxiety podcast. I'm Megan DeVito, and I help ambitious women break out of the anxiety spiral so they can stop overthinking and actually enjoy life. This podcast is all about real talk, simple shifts, and light bulb moments that'll change the way you think, feel, and show up for yourself and everybody else in your life too. You'll get straight up truth, actionable steps, and the inspiration to finally break free from the stress and second guessing. Let's get to it. Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 129 of the More Than Anxiety podcast. I'm so excited to be able to talk with Lisa Parry this morning. She is a TED speaker. She has so many great things to talk about with you, and I'm going to let her go ahead and introduce herself because everybody does a better job than I could ever do of introducing themselves. So good morning.
Good morning, Megan. It's good to be with you. Very fitting to be on a podcast with the word anxiety in it because I'm a K-12 principal who definitely has to keep my own anxiety in check. You know, as you all know, educators, there's a lot to be anxious about. So I don't think it's ever about eliminating the anxiety. It's just learning to live with it and actually learning to use it to your benefit. As I said, I'm a pre-K-12 principal in a district of about 300 students. I'm also the curriculum director and I teach AP language and composition at our school. I work a lot with the DOE to support new teachers and new principals. I also now serve as an adjunct professor for a South Dakota university. And I love to speak and I love to show up in people's places and hopefully give them just one thing. I may give them 10 things, but I want them to take one thing because if we try to do everything, we never do any of it. So that's a little bit about me. And I'm anxious to see what Megan asked me so that I can share what I know and share what I think.
This is actually the perfect day. You guys don't know this listening, but Lisa knows that yesterday I went and talked with our local teachers. It was a school system-wide teacher workday. So I was asked to come in and speak about stress and anxiety. And the whole time I was just thinking about this podcast interview today. And I'm like, oh, this is good. Like, I wish we could have teamed up because I feel like you have so much to share. And it was interesting, you know, like knowing everything. I mean, coming from the classroom and knowing what these teachers they've got a lot on their plates, and there's so much going on with teacher mental health and student mental health. And there's a reason that everyone's getting to the point of burnout, right?
You know,
and so
one of those, sorry, I didn't mean to
no, go
interrupt.
ahead.
I think one of those reasons is that those of us who go into what I call human-centered professions, we are by default the kind of people who want to pour into others, want to see that work, want to feel our own satisfaction and gratitude from others. And a lot of times in a human touch profession like ours, we don't always see that. We may see, you know, the pushback, or we may see the apathy, we may see the frustration or the anger. And a lot of us are type A, obsessive compulsive, people-pleasing perfectionists. And that's who I am, which is why Megan's work is so interesting to me. Because I've lived that way, and for a long time it was detrimental. And now that I'm a school leader, I actually think it's beneficial because I've learned to kind of rein in those feelings and use them, and I can help teachers, especially new teachers, and principals, especially new principals, kind of switch their mindsets a little bit. Because until you think differently, you're never going to act differently and you're never going to message differently. So it all comes back to how I think about things. And the way that I think about things has allowed me to really enjoy K-12 for 31 years.
That's amazing. Like I love that. And it is such a thing where you look at people and you know that I mean no one goes this is so cliche, right? But nobody goes into education for the money. We know what we're getting into ahead of time, right? We go in because we want to make a difference. And one of the things that came up when I was talking with them yesterday was these things will work. These things that I'm teaching you that you can do to lower your own stress and that you can do in your classroom with your students, they will 100% work. The problem is that you can't make anybody do it. I can't make you be mindful. I can't make you change your mindset.
And the other thing is we think that change or revolutionizing ourselves, it's just we should be able to hear something Megan says or hear something Lisa says and all of a sudden show up differently. And it doesn't work like that. I do not exercise. I don't believe in exercise. I don't like to sweat. I'm married to a guy who likes to exercise and he's always hurt. So I feel like I'm better off. But I do have an exercise analogy to share. It's like the weight room. Somebody who heard Megan yesterday is going to have to take one of her ideas and rep after rep after rep after rep to build it because it's a muscle. And whenever we think we're going to change a habit, we think we're going to change a mindset, we think we're going to change the way that we talk to people, we are ridiculous to think that that's going to happen today or tomorrow. It takes a long time. And I think we throw it out the window because we're impatient. If I really encourage everybody to read Atomic Habits by James Clear. And if you're not a reader, please find the PDF online because there's a really succinct summary of what Clear has to say. But basically, he says in Adam's Small Seed of Matter, you have to change, bit by bit by bit by bit, and you've got to remove friction in order to make those changes. So it isn't just about change. It isn't just about adopting a new way of thinking about things. Like everything that's beneficial, it takes work.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And it's not, I wish I could tell you that it was like, oh yeah, and then you just change your mind. But it's not like your brain is designed to want to do the same thing over and over again because so far so good, right? Like you've survived it. So
and our brain is looking for danger. I mean, that's,
right.
that's what we're primed to do because once upon a time there was danger around every corner. And in some places in the United States, unfortunately, there probably is danger around every corner. I am not in danger here. But yet my mind is always looking for places that I might get trapped. And then therefore I'm like always on pins and needles. And that part of our brain that doesn't want to be quiet can really sabotage us because a lot of times when we think there's danger looming, there isn't. And here's one thing I ask myself all the time. Aside from my thoughts, am I okay? And you know what? Almost 100% of the time I am. It's just my brain is trying to help me, but it's sabotaging me. Aside from my thoughts, am I okay?
Yeah, that's a huge question. That also came up where we were talking about some of the more reactive, like the reactive kids, the kids who are, no matter what you do, they're going to refuse, they're going to blow up, they're going to do those things. But also those kids who are, I don't know the right term for it, I guess, but almost like silently reacting, where they're just sitting there thinking about everything that they're terrified of. And kids are afraid at school. My kid is afraid at school. And so, I mean, and he's talked about that where he's like, no, I will absolutely keep my phone under my thigh in case I need to call you. And that breaks my heart. But I think that, I think it's easy for maybe teachers and for parents to say, you know what, you're really safe there. You really are safe at school. Statistically, you're safe there.
Right. Just like an airplane, right? We've seen a couple recent crashes and still airline travel is exceedingly more safe than auto travel. But all of these big incidents get a lot of ink, get a lot of minutes, and they should. But they do tip our bias toward terrible things are going to happen there. And, it's something we always have to be ready for, but it isn't something that we have to soak in. And I think that that's important. And I think when kids know that the adults have a plan, and when the adults know they have a plan and they know what the plan is, which takes a lot of communication from admin, then everybody, that kind of helps to lower the temperature a little bit, because we don't want to not know what to do if something terrible goes wrong. I would say though that if something terrible went wrong here today, I'm 100% sure the plan was just about the window. And I would do whatever my mind thought would be the right thing to do with these kids, because really that's kind of how we operate. Under stress, I'm probably not going to go to the flip chart, right?
Right.
Some of those pieces are really embedded in my brain, but otherwise I'm going to do what I think is best for kids in that moment. And I hope kids trust that the adults are going to take care of them. Sadly, I'm not sure that that happens in every building. I think that there are things that go on, and I think that the adults in the room don't always manage people as well as they should. And then therefore that gives room for that anxiety to the kids' anxiety to grow.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. And when the teachers look frazzled, when the teachers are
Yeah.
burnt out and just over it, the kids know. We talked about
Yeah.
that too. Like, you bring your energy to the room. When you show up and you had a bad day at home, I'm not asking you to leave your luggage at home. It's impossible. You can't forget that you got into a fight with your spouse or your husband or
Right.
your spouse or your kids or whatever. But when it comes into the room, the kids read it and they know.
Right. I
So
think that's true. Go ahead.
no. Continue.
Well, I heard a term the other day. It was hyper-normalization. And I'd never heard of this term before, but when hyper being over, and we know what it means to normalize something. And the context was, what's going on in the nation and how the divisiveness and all the things that are plaguing us right now, and how, we get up, we eat breakfast, we go to work, we go home, we eat supper, we go to bed, and all of this is like on fire around us, and we're just acting like everything's fine. And I started applying that to school. And I think about all the things that we just work through, like that's a thing. And I never really had this epiphany before, but it's very dangerous to start normalizing things that are not in people's best interests, whether it's the staff member who isn't doing what he or she should, or the student who's acting out in ways he or she should. I just look around me, and now after this, and it's been a couple of days since I heard it, and I just notice things that now are just kind of like baked into the K-12 system. And I'm like, how in the world did this become what we do, how we show up, how we help, how we support, how we expect, how we address. And the more and more I think about this, the more and more bothered I am, because the longer it goes on, the less likely you are to uproot it and get rid of it. But there's a lot of things that we're just like, yeah, that's what I've got to do in my classroom. That there's some things that shouldn't be normalized, and I think everybody listening can kind of think of their own list in their own school. But I don't know, that's been something that's been sitting on my brain, and I've been thinking about, I'm trying to think about how to think of it, because I think that it's important.
It is that, and that normalization that we see. Even I remember talking about this with my oldest son, where there was some TV show that he wanted to watch, and I didn't want him to watch it as his mom. I'm like, yeah, I don't want you to see that. And he's like, it's not that big of a deal. I'm like, it's only not a big deal because you've seen it so many times. And we have gotten to that point where we're like, oh, that stinks that happened again.
Right.
Or, well, this is just what they do. I guess we'll just let them do it. I mean, it's a slippery slope.
It
And
really is. And
become
even
less.
just the normalization of phones, for younger and younger people, with no real guardrails on how much time they can spend on that phone or what they get to watch.
Mhm.
And that's just now what kids do. And that's changing their brains, like literally changing their brains. We talked about always looking for danger. I mean, those thoughts form like neural pathways in our brain. And it's just like a path. Like you keep walking the path, and pretty soon there's no grass on it. And then it's easier to keep going that way. The same thing is true with these kids, where their minds are going. They're going off on paths that 8, 12, 15-year-olds were not meant to trod. I mean, those are not the woods and the forest for them. And yet there they go. And I mean, that just is what it is. It's no surprise to see a small person with a cell phone on YouTube.
Mm-mm.
And that's unfortunate. We're starting to kind of see the fruits of that now. We're starting to harvest some of the fruits of that now, which is kids who have a very difficult time in social settings, students who have a lot of anxiety, students who have very limited attention spans. It's all coming home to roost now. And then you have to ask yourself, what's next? And what are we going to normalize next?
Yeah. And really the only thing they can do when they feel unsafe or they feel bored or they feel confused or they feel frustrated or they feel anxious is get a quick dopamine hit. So the only
Mm-hmm.
thing I can do is I have to be on my phone. I have to have my Chromebook to play a video game.
Yep.
I have to have that dopamine.
Yeah.
And I talked a little bit and recommended the book Dopamine Nation. It's horrifying.
Mm-hmm.
Like I
It really
sweat
is. Yeah.
to read it. So with everything that teachers are dealing with, I mean, they're fighting cell phones, which is so crazy. And
Yeah.
I realize that they can't solve all of this. I mean, a lot of this has to go back to the parents. It's not their job to parent these kids, but well, that's another thing that we've normalized. Like, well, the parents don't need to do it. We'll just send them to their teacher or their therapist or anything else, and I'll just hang tight here and be the good guy, which
Mhm.
great. And no, please don't.
Right,
But what do you
right.
think is this like what is causing the burnout? What is making this teacher shortage that we are experiencing across the country right now such an issue? Because it's not Indiana, it's not South Dakota, it is everywhere.
Right. I read an article, I think it was last year, and it was arguing that everything that teachers are experiencing in terms of like the negativity in their lives via their work, that there's two categories. One is burnout, which you mentioned, and the other is disillusionment. And I think that disillusionment is an important piece too. I'll get to burnout in a second, but again, we come back to people who are so like starry-eyed and optimistic and they're going to change the world, and thank goodness they come in like that, because if you came in really cynical, where would you end up? So you have to come in
Yeah.
very wide-eyed and eager.
Yeah.
But disillusionment is, okay, here's what I thought this was, and it isn't.
And
Here's
it's
what
not.
I thought this would be, and it's not. And I don't know what to think about that. I don't know what to do about that. And then burnout, I think, is just sustained disillusionment. I think that burnout comes to the point where you know well what it is. I mean, it's very clear what it is, and you can't take it anymore. And I think that it's really important for early principals, early teachers to have conversations, and admin need to set this up, have conversations with somebody who's been in the field and who knows what this is, who can kind of, I don't know, introduce and help them come through those situations that they didn't anticipate. Because you come in and you have all these problems that you think are going to happen, and you kind of have some ideas of what you're going to do about them, and then all these other things present themselves, and you have no tools in your toolbox for that. And therefore, you become more and more disillusioned because it's less and less what you thought it would be. It's not some utopia. It turns dystopian sometimes. And I think that it's prolonged disillusionment. Like, I came here to do something important. I came here to add value to the world. I came here to pour into others, and I can't, because the context of this doesn't let me. And then the longer I feel that way, the further I drift from my purpose. Then I think that that's where burnout comes from.
Yeah. And that I would say, almost a resentment for the
Mm-hmm.
entire state of education. And whether that's a top-down problem or a bottom-up problem, I don't know. But that
Right.
idea of it is, I mean, you see, I have my daughter's friend is a first-year teacher, and she's so excited. I joke,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, you are Miss Frizzle. Like, you are driving the school bus.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
she is that girl. And I'm like, hang on to that
Yes.
as long
Yes.
as you can, because inside I'm like, oh, sis, get
Yeah.
ready. Like, I
It
mean,
gets
and I'm
hard.
so excited that we have those people,
Right.
but we
Absolutely.
see it fall so quickly. So if you could pull teachers in, like if you could set this up where you pulled these teachers or you pulled these administrators in and you were going to teach them one thing that would help them be a little more resilient or kind of set them on fire again for education, what would you teach them or coach them on?
One thing before I go into
Yeah,
that, and
yeah.
I will,
Go
but
ahead.
it's those kids, and I'll call them kids, even though they're young
Yeah.
teachers.
She's a kid.
Yeah, I've got two kids of my own who are teachers.
Uh-huh.
It's those kids who we've got to worry about the most, and it's those kids who are the thing is, like, as principals, we look around and we're like, okay, ooh, this person seems to be faltering, so we kind of go that way. But the person who's still kind of like, oh, I love this, that person is actually more susceptible to disillusionment and burnout than the person you know who maybe is struggling, or maybe showing up with like, okay, I'm here from 8 to 4, I go home, I'm not that invested. But when somebody looks like they've got everything together, like, oh, okay, they're okay over here, we're going to go over here. And meanwhile, that person who's especially susceptible to that idea that I fell short or that I'm not enough, those are the people who need our help. So there's two things that I like to talk about. One is, it is personal. I mean, everything in education is personal. And if you, teachers and admin, if you did not think it was going to be personal, you did not think. I mean, these are children. And thankfully, most of them belong to people who really love them and want to advocate for them. And of course it's personal. Of course it's personal when a kid gets suspended. Of course it's personal when a kid gets an F. Of course it's personal when a kid gets has had too many absences and I have to call the district attorney. But that doesn't mean it's about you. Like, we like to make everything about us. It isn't about you. It is about a system that says when this happens, this happens. And when they're angry about that, it's railing against the system. It doesn't matter who implements the system. It doesn't matter who puts the zero in, because that's what you do when a paper is late X number of days, or that you serve ISS if you have this infraction. It is not about you, but to that parent, that is scary. It's humbling. It's frustrating. And those are the emotions that are coming out. And they really are just reflecting what they're feeling. I'm a dog mom. I've got 2 Labradors, and they're like fur kids to me. And I heard once, and this especially stuck with me, and it might stick with your dog people. Like, if you approached a dog and it was like snarling and snotting and you would be like, "Whoa, I'm not getting near that thing. Like, that thing's psycho. Get away from me." And if upon further inspection, you noticed its foot was caught in a trap, the way you think of it changes. You still aren't going to run up to it and, scratch its ears, because it's still dangerous, but you're probably going to find a way to release it, to relieve it, to help it, get away from its pain. And so when I've got people who are just unloading on me, I think to myself, what is the pain point here? What are they scared of? And when you ask yourself what people are scared of instead of what are they mad about, it changes everything about the way you want to deal with them. Because I've been scared for my children, and now I'm a grandmother, and I will be scared. My oldest grandchild will start preschool next year, and there's going to be things that bother me and that upset me. And it isn't because of any single person who's in her educational life. It's because I want everything to go well for her. And if it doesn't, that's going to be emotional to me. The other thing I like to say, and this came from our Sioux Falls mayor, Paul Tenick, and he was doing a debate once before his last re-election, and he said something about, or one of the opposition said to him, "Well, you've only done this and this." And Paul said, "I don't hit a grand slam every time. Boy, I wish I did. I do not hit a grand slam every time. And every once in a while I strike out. But I usually hit at least a single. And if you hit enough singles, you score runs." And I like to tell that to new teachers, and I like to tell that to new principals, because again, we're back to people-pleasing perfectionists who just want to rack up the wins. They want to rack up the grand slams. That isn't how it works. You can take the best, and again, I'm not an athlete and I don't exercise, but you can take the best major league player, and I should have looked up the stats. I used to know them. The best hitter ever did not hit a grand slam every time he came up to bat. And we have to remember that we need to celebrate the little things and not set these expectations like, I'm going to turn this class around. I'm going to, fill in the blank with whatever ideal you have. And you just have to realize that if that's where you're setting the bar all the time, you're always going to fall short. And then disillusionment sets in. So setting goals at a reasonable level, and we veterans, we need to help newbies set goals that are reasonable so that they can check things off. That I got to win. I used to coach volleyball. You win a set, you lose a set, there's still a next set, you can still win. We won, we lost. Heck, we lost. We can still win if we win the next 3. Yeah. So you're going to lose, and you're going to strike out, and you're going to hit mostly singles, and you're going to have a few grand slams, and that needs to be okay.
Yeah. And I think that
like really going back to that idea of what are you focusing on and what are you choosing to think about? So even, earlier in this conversation, are we going to focus on everything that we're afraid of? Because when we do, when we're focusing on, yeah, but that kid today, they blew up and they yelled at me and then their parents called or whatever it is that happened in the classroom, when that's because that makes you feel so emotional and so anxious. And so, I mean, it makes teachers feel that way, right? Like I
Right.
messed up. I can't figure out what works for this kid. I can't control them. I can't, now the parents are mad at me. When we take all of that in, instead of looking at what am I scared of, I think that is so, we're focusing on all the things that didn't work. And I
Right.
think that really is it's just stepping stones out the door at that point. Like, well, it's not working. Nothing I'm doing is working. And I think that, that idea of this, I mean, back to hyper normalization, if you're normalizing everything that's not working or focusing on what's not
Right.
working, like, well, it's
Right.
pretty normal for me just to not have anything work out. So I guess I should
Yep.
go.
Yep. Exactly. And I like to think, and this is not my language, I don't know whose it is, but to a certain extent, things that we can predict, we can prevent.
Hmm.
And so as leaders, if we've got a teacher who, especially in a certain class period, the group is especially boisterous or, apathetic, whatever they are, if I can predict that a teacher is going to have difficulty in that setting, then I can do some things to help her. Because if you can predict it, you can't necessarily prevent it, but you need to go where and be where you predict issues are going to crop up. I spend every day in the lunchroom, not because I want to. That's a hard environment for me, but I would rather be in there than clean up the probably the literal and metaphorical mess that can get made in there if I'm not. And so you got to choose your heart. It's hard to go where the problems are. It's hard to go to that hallway where the problems are. It's hard to go to the recess where the problems are, the bus line, the lunchroom. It's hard to go to those spaces. It's harder to not go. So if you know where your hot spots are, if you can predict that that's where things are going to fall apart, get yourself there. Be there for that teacher who's going to struggle with their third block. Be there in the lunchroom so that you can make sure that the environment isn't so chaotic that the kindergarten people are, freaking out so much they can't eat their corn dog. Be outside when the fifth graders are out there and they're known to throw ice chunks at each other. Like, if you can predict it, you should be trying to prevent it. And sometimes if you can predict it, you can prevent it, but you should be trying to at least. Because there's so many things that pop up that we did not anticipate. And so we got to just like roll with those and figure it out as we go. There's a lot of things you don't need to figure out in the moment. There's a lot of things that you should have figured out yesterday or last month or in August. And if you're still figuring that out, then you're not maintaining an environment that teachers and students can operate well in. You got
Yeah.
to go where it's bad.
Yeah, that's hard. That's a hard choice, right? Like nobody wants to have to, it's exhausting to have to do that, but it's that paying it forward idea.
Absolutely.
And
And when you raise your hand and say, I want to be principal, I want that title, you are saying, I want to go and do the hard things
mhm,
and support the people who do the harder things, which is teaching in a classroom. And
yeah.
if you don't want to do that, then you should not raise your hand and say, pick me as principal or lead teacher or coach. All of these things come with added responsibilities. And it's strange to me how many people, want the benefits of leadership, but they don't want the pain. And I mean, that's your job.
Yeah.
Your job is to maintain a culture where teaching and learning can take place. That's your
Yeah.
job. And that's a big umbrella, and a lot of things fall under it, including me being in the lunchroom. But I'm in there because that's what I signed up for.
I'm really glad that you brought this up because I think that I had this thought earlier in the week. I kind of expanded on it yesterday when I was talking with this group of teachers. And came off of I don't remember if it was a book or what it was that sparked this thought, but in this age where we are, where kids do have cell phones all the time. And I mean, I joke about this still that I'm old enough to remember when they told us we wouldn't always have a calculator and we're like, oh yes, we will. So now we just carry one with us everywhere, right? Good plan. But because we're in this age of phones and AI and instant overwhelming amounts of information, more information than our brains were ever designed to handle, which I think is a huge problem and why we're so anxious. We just, I mean, straight up, we know too much sometimes. We don't need to know this stuff. And we have kids who the only way they know to feel better is to grab that phone and to scroll. My thought, my suggestion that I brought up yesterday was you are not having kids that are going to need the same information that we had previously, right? Like they don't need it. They can Google anything.
Right.
But they don't have any idea what to do with how they feel. And I know we're going to cross over into that whole SES thing, right? Like we don't want to talk about all of that. But if we're talking about emotional regulation and we're talking about things that kids need to be able to do to look someone in the eye when they're talking to them, or to be able to not have to grab their phone every time that they feel anxious or they feel stressed, or even teachers, right? Like we're all guilty. How did my phone end up in my hand? How long have I been scrolling on Instagram?
Right.
I would even venture to say that finding ways to incorporate mindfulness and like managing those feelings and those emotions inside of their body so that they are even capable of learning anything and not having to Google everything is going to be a huge part of the future of education. I just cannot imagine, like, if you just say, okay, go learn these things, these kids know, they're like, why would I learn that when I can just put it into chat GPT?
Right. I think,
And maybe this came from our conversation previously, actually.
yeah, it might
Now
have.
that I'm thinking about
I
it.
think now more than ever, there's two categories of things that we need to be working on with kids. One is what to do. They know how to get the information. They need to be taught what to do with it. But the other thing they need to be taught is how to do blank. I think the problem is, and I see this in myself and my own family, is that when you're on that phone, you're not producing, you're not moving, you're not creating. People who bake bread or bicycle or crochet or are photographers or work on engines or sew clothing, these people, at least anecdotally, are people who are way better off than people who don't know how to do blank, whatever that is. And I I can't believe I'm going to tell you this, but I started making my own dog food because I didn't like the little pellets.
Me too. And I'm so embarrassed about it.
No, I know, we are confessing. And that now is something, I'm like this mad scientist with, frozen peas and ground turkey and seeing what I can come up with. And I'm doing something. And doing that and failing and succeeding and experimenting and trying and thinking about it, that process, pulls me out of my head, pulls me out of the world's problems, pulls me out of politics, pulls me out of school, and allows me to focus on something else. And what I fear the most and what I see the most is that there are too many people who can't fill in the blank. I like to blank or I can blank. They got nothing.
Yep.
And that's scary because for me, my mental health, if I let my brain just sit and not do something, it's going to catastrophize. Yeah. That's what I do. While I'm making dog food and on the internet and trying to figure out this and that, and how do I get them more, whatever, that pulls me out of my head. And I think it's really important that we are looking at providing more experiences and skills. It's not, I used to teach Shakespeare's birth year, Shakespeare's death year, what his wife's name was, what his children, no, that doesn't matter. I teach now how to read Shakespeare. Mm-hmm. That is, that's a skill. And so, some schools are better than this than others, but kids need to build skills so that they can use to be distracted from, we're distracted by our phones. We need to be distracted away from our phones. But you can't just tell me or a kid to put your phone away and then we're just going to sit there. Nobody can do that. So what else am I going to do? Mom, what should I do? Mrs. Parry, what should I do? Get into Boy Scouts, go bowling. And this is where parents really have to join us too, because we've got these kids for a finite number of hours. But when these kids learn to do something that they like to do, and we don't even have to talk about SEL, because automatically the doing and the commitment to something, learning something and being excited about it, it takes care of a lot of those issues.
Yeah. And that movement is so important. I
Oh
mean,
my
just that whole process of moving. I mean, I joke, but every kid should be taught how to crochet, even if they're only going to make a really long string and tear it apart and do it again.
Yep.
It's magic. I mean,
Yep.
it's
Absolutely.
repetitive motion. It's
Yep.
amazing. And
Right.
are you going to do anything with it? It doesn't matter. It
Right.
doesn't matter. Even if you could crochet while you listen to your teacher talk,
Right.
amazing what it will do for your brain. And it's those things. I'll joke right now that when I was little, we had to learn how to square dance in Indiana, which
Oh,
I'm like, what is the point of this? Like, when am I ever going to have to square
I
dance?
love it.
Never.
I
But we
love
did.
it.
It was so dumb, but we had a great time.
Here in South Dakota, and I'm sure other communities or other states will understand this, but the kids who are in 4-H or who grow up
Yeah.
on farms or ranches, it isn't that they grew up on the farm, because you can grow up on the farm and not do anything on the farm. But kids who show cattle, kids who care for goats, kids who have a crop in, kids who are fixing a tractor, these kids these kids are busy and they're excited to talk about what they do. And these are just not kids who live on their phone. They got too much to do. They got too much at stake. And I look at that often because I'm not a farm family, but I see that in so many kids, and a lot of kids who aren't necessarily excited about Shakespeare and triangles. They have so much going for them outside of school, something that just like really jacks them up and gets them excited.
Mhm.
These kids who could become really like despondent in school, they're not, because on the other side of that, they got something that really lights them up. And it's the kids who get their butts kicked in school every hour of every day because we don't accept their currency, right? And they don't accept ours. And then go home to nothing to do. Those are the people we need to worry about.
Mhm.
The ones who bowl, the ones who work, the ones who, they're making money working at Walmart or at Subway, whatever. Those people are just so much better off. And so when I look at kids, the ones I worry about are the ones who grind through this day and then go home and, either have to battle the demons at home or sit and stare at the phone. They have to learn to do something.
Yeah, there's so much that, I mean, like I could go on for hours. I
Yes,
really feel like I just need to take a vacation to South Dakota and come hang out with you for a
you
bit.
absolutely, absolutely. Don't come to the east. Let's go to the west. It's pretty
Yeah.
out there. I live in farmland, but Western, here's the commercial pitch for my state. If you have not been to Western South Dakota, the Black Hills, the Badlands, Mount Rushmore, it's pretty stunning. Pretty
I
stunning.
really, really need to go there because I've not been to South Dakota.
Yeah, it's stunning. It really, really is.
Yeah, well, if you
Beautiful
want to come
part of the
to
state.
Indiana, it is Southern Indiana or Lake Michigan, and
All
just
right.
maybe, yeah, just go to Western Michigan.
I like it. I like
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Tell people where they can reach you. Tell them a little bit about what you do and how they can connect with you, because you've got
Awesome.
so much information and knowledge that this country needs right now.
I appreciate that. Well, yeah, I do a lot of speaking, keynote speaking. I do a lot of, breakout sessions, virtual sessions. I am a Principal Matters associate. So if anybody knows Will Parker and Principal Matters, I work with Will. And so I am fortunate enough to kind of teach some of his content and work alongside him. I love to speak. I love to present. I love to come in and work with. One of the favorite things I ever did, there was the school who had two teachers who just, they needed to work together and they couldn't. And so the principal called me and was like, can you just like mediate? And I did. And I don't know these two people. I have no idea what the politics are, the personnel. I don't know anything about them. And so I was able to say things, ask things, think about things that it was too close for them. And I actually got really good results from that. And I like to do that kind of work. I like conflict and I like to like unravel it. I do have a website, www.principalparry.com, and you can email me from there. I'm also very active on LinkedIn. So Lisa, Parry, and you can find me. My picture is a little picture of me next to my TEDx sign. And yeah, that was a lot of fun. And listen to my TEDx. You can find
Yeah.
that on my website too.
I will link that in the show notes. We'll make sure that everybody gets to hear that. I'll put all of your links up there. So if you start getting mountains of people that are
I
like,
sure
hey,
hope
it's
so. I sure
me.
hope so. I'd love to travel to you, or we can do a virtual thing. Let me know. I'd love to get you on my calendar. It'd be awesome.
Thank you for spending your morning with me. I know it's early out there and you've got kids waiting for you, probably busting in the door any minute. So
Yeah, I'm seeing them out my window. Yep.
I'll be like, hi, Mary.
Well, it's good to talk with you. Thank you. And thanks to everybody for listening. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. We'll talk again soon.
Yeah. Bye now.
Hey there. Before you go, I just want to say thanks for hanging out with me on More Than Anxiety. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave a review so that other people can find it too. And if you're ready to quiet your mind, stop overthinking, and actually enjoy your life, there are 2 ways I can help. 1, I have a group called Ambitious Overthinkers Anonymous. It's my monthly coaching community where you'll get live coaching, real talk, and a super supportive crew who get it. And the second way is through one-on-one coaching. So if you're ready for deep, personalized support to help you feel calm, confident, and in control, head over there. You can find both of these places in the show notes. Just click the link and let's talk.